Is the recording should be, yeah, we're good. All
All
right,
right.
and we're live. Hello, everybody. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Excellent.
Uh, there's a ridiculous amount of stuff to talk about today,
I mean,
hence
just,
the title of the stream.
oh, yeah, I titled this stream for a reason. As I was putting together stories, like, there were just two that, like, right on the front page were just like, what the hell is going on with this world? And I think it's fair to say, like, what's happening, because I've heard of this kind of thing happening before. When people who were alive during and aware during the fall of the Soviet Union around the late 80s, very early 90s, that for them, it felt like that reality itself was unraveling and that they
Yeah,
couldn't
that
tell
that
what was
was
going on
one
from day to day.
that was one personal prime account of what the news media was like during the fall of the Soviet Union. And if you look at North Korean state media, it's very similar. The more subjective and self-evidently inconsistent cultural standards and political media is in a country, the more desperate its state is in. And I think that we've pretty thoroughly made that case through various different means throughout the last couple of streams over the last few months.
But
But
you guys haven't seen anything yet.
yeah, I distinctly remember it was back around mid to late November, one of those streams. I specifically said it was after the midterms. If you think that it was in response to the low voter turnout that actually happened in the midterm elections, I specifically said if you guys think that the last 2 to 3 years of news media was crazy, you have not seen anything yet. And I think what we're about to cover today is just the bare fucking minimum of what's about to come in the following months.
Yeah, I've pretty much given up on thinking that I'm completely jaded and that nothing can surprise me because, I don't know, what should we talk about first? We have like 8 things to talk about. We're not going to cover them all, but there are some choice items.
Well, we could talk about the student loan issue I was talking about. There's a new federal law which is currently being proposed that would make paycheck deductions mandatory on people who have student loan accounts in their banks.
Yeah, so we were trying to speculate before, like what the reason for them doing it, like what the justification they were going to use is. And you were talking about before how people
I
with
think,
student loans can deduct that from their taxes.
yeah, that is a point that I mentioned in my video I made about a month ago on counter economics, which is that there is a pretty popular tax cut that people can take advantage of, which is that if they have a student loan account registered under their name in a bank, they can get back taxes from the IRS. And I think this is very deliberately a target directed towards people who are taking advantage of that tax credit system. Now, they're not getting rid of the tax credit system, they're just making it so um, only certain people can take advantage of it, where it's not actually beneficial for someone who may be using it to make their life better could, and that's why they're targeting wages and not capital gains or any other means by which people could sustain a living for themselves. And I think that's probably the most disgusting part about this whole thing.
This might actually be a problem. This might actually be a thing. I just had this thought that they're trying to get people to begin gambling in the stock market. That might be what the objective is. I mean, a lot of money is in the stock market right now that doesn't want to be there because capital gains are taxed at like 16% while income is taxed at 32%. Anyone with any basic amount of economic or any understanding of economics would tell you that in order to discourage people from buying something, you make it more expensive. You add a cost to it, you tax it. So
It's
people are still going
probably
to want to make money. Where are they going to do that?
well, it's probably both. I think it's probably to discourage people who are earning of lower income brackets from trying to take advantage of this tax credit, and also to encourage speculation in the stock markets.
Yeah,
Because
also, yeah, sorry
I
to.
mean, sorry.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that there's a big problem with the stream that's incredibly laggy right now.
Pull up the config, the CMD command prompt.
I'm well. First off, I'm a little wary about doing that because my username will dox me.
Okay, fine.
But
But
I actually don't think it is because usually when that happens, we have trouble being able to talk to each other. Whereas I'm hearing you just fine, you're hearing me fine.
so
So
it may just be connection problems or YouTube then.
I think it might be connection problems because my local internet is a total piece of absolute garbage right now.
Fair enough. But
But I'm still doing a solid recording, so if anybody can hear this out, it's the whole recording without the lag is going to be uploaded to my live stream channel, so you'll be able to check out there.
But as I was mentioning, yeah, a big part of state incentives is to which we've been going over the last few streams, and I've started mentioning in my recent videos, is having financial control over society. But as also noted in our video about the Green New Deal, they don't want to do this through force, and the reason they don't want to do this through force is because it's completely unsustainable to have a society which is unable to have profit and speculation because of the economic calculation problem. Also, because there were so many revolts against the state in under feudalism that or any other totalitarian systems, that it is not sustainable. Just culturally, the state cannot actually establish a stable social framework. So they try to have this Orwellian mix of force and propaganda efforts constantly.
And the stream just went offline for no reason.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
It went offline
Yes.
completely.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. We're live right now, by the way. Hello, everyone.
Hello, sorry about that. We're getting some rather serious connection issues. I gave Esso the key to start streaming, so hopefully we should be good now. Yay!
Yeah, I'm hosting the stream this time, so if it is connection issues, then it's not going to be on his end. It's going to be on YouTube's end.
Well, this will definitely prove it. Although I'm pretty sure it'll be on my end, so no, the CIA basketball Americans are probably not responsible. At least not this time. So anyways, we were going on about about student loans and people who owe student loans having their wages garnished by the federal government because they can just do that apparently.
Yeah, and that's what I was mentioning. I found it peculiar that it was only wages which were being targeted by the federal government, and yeah, not capital gains, not any other means by which people could make an income and take advantage of the tax credit system which exists for bank accounts that have student loans. No, this is specifically directed at people who make wages. And that's something which I was arguing throughout the the last fucking attempts to record this, was that this is very clearly targeted towards people who are essentially just trying to get a better living for themselves, trying to get some more money so that they can accumulate more resources. And that's something which I've been going over, Filthy and I both actually have been going over for the past few months, that the state attempts to establish a system of financial control, but they don't want to take an iron-fisted approach. They don't. Firstly, it's completely unsustainable to have a centrally planned economy due to the economic calculation problem, but also the social framework of a totalitarian society is unsustainable because there's unrest every couple months or so. So it's not possible to establish a stable rule. So what we have today is basically the same sort of rule that existed hundreds of years ago in the first world. It's just adapted to a modern form, and that's why, frankly, society closely resembles a feudal structure in relation to political connections to the state. I mean, you have patent laws, sort of like royal charters. You have the organizations like the FDA, which function as like the guild system. It's ridiculous how similar it is, except it's not just brute force. It's a Orwellian mixed amalgamation between force and constant propaganda efforts designed to convince people that they're not being kept down by the state.
Well, Alexis de Tocqueville wrote about this in Democracy in America, where he talked about how if there's going to be a new form of tyranny, at least this is what I vaguely recall he said. I remember this. I don't remember how he said this would be brought about, but I do remember he said that what it's going to look like is a soft tyranny. Things are not, generally speaking, going to be banned. They're going to be restricted. They're going to be regulated. They're going to be taxed. You're going to be able to get it, but you're just going to have to jump through so many hoops to get it that only the most dedicated people will even consider it.
Yeah,
Which is how you have
not,
something like in New
well,
York City, where
not necessarily the most dedicated people, just the people who have political favor with the state, which is why it's comparable to a guild system.
Mhm.
For example, I think Konkin, in his lost books that were just published recently, Counter Economics from Back Alleys to the Stars, he made a great observation about this. He brought up a great example, which is that if you were to trade on the market, if you were to try and sell certain commodities, well, if you try and sell it at the same price as everybody else, well, that's monopolistic pricing. If you sell it at a higher rate than everybody else, then you're, well, no, selling it at the same rates as everyone else, that's conspiring to undercut the market. Well, no, it's conspiracy. Selling it at a higher price than everybody else is monopolistic pricing, and selling it at a lower price than everybody else is attempting to undercut the market. So what do you do here? You literally can't do anything.
That's
So,
funny. That's funny. Years ago, what's his name? Jacob Spinney made that exact point at the beginning of his video on monopolies.
well, the point, I mean, regardless of who said it, the point is that human action is basically impossible, except for the people who have political favor for the state who aren't going to rule against them. And that's essentially the point that I'm making. Any product which you see in Walmart or in any of the major retailers, or is available to a mass audience, that company, you can fucking guarantee has political favor with the state because they literally can't sell their products unless they do.
Pretty much. And I'm thinking more about how it is or what social engineering is going on by continually disincentivizing wage earning. Obviously, people are still going to have to earn a wage, but there's a reason that they're trying to steer capital towards investment rather than savings. And I think it's because it's a subsidy to the big businesses, the big corporatist organizations that already exist, in that what do you invest your money in? You invest it in stocks. And how does that work exactly? It means you infuse this corporation with your money. So that gives them more capital. And if they happen to gain more capital and you gain as well, well that's fantastic. But what they want is essentially just people being forced into giving companies more money even if they otherwise wouldn't want it to happen.
Well, previously, I'd suspected that this practice was basically just a misguided attempt by the state to try and stimulate revenue and therefore stimulate growth for itself. You know, basically put itself on life support, so to speak. But it's of course that's not sustainable, and I wasn't arguing otherwise. I just thought perhaps it could have been the politicians' um, lack of economic literacy. I took that into consideration. But recently, I've been researching money lending in its relation to the state. I started reading some of the works of Spooner and Tucker on that. The recent new books which were published by Spooner, he goes into great detail about this. It's because of the money lenders. That's the reason why the state is so fixated on spending. It's because essentially the state gets bailed out by money lenders constantly. That's the reason why we still have states, and they didn't just disappear the first time they collapsed because they're unsustainable. Because every fucking time one of them collapses, the money lenders will just fund a bunch of people to take the seats of that monopoly on arbitration and create a new state. That's exactly how the U.S. was formed. It's painted like it was a grassroots revolution, but you've got to remember. I mean, they had a large the American revolutionaries at the time had a large funding from the French government and were backed by a lot of the major banks. And another point to note is that at that time, under feudal structures of government, but what is that noise? There's some white noise coming on. But anyway, you couldn't actually trade unless you had a royal charter and you had permission from the state, which is primarily why mercantilism is such an inefficient means of trade. And yeah, well, they managed to receive backing by some of these feudal governments. But my point in all of this, I completely fucking forgot.
So you were talking about how money lenders were basically the
Yeah,
reason that the state hasn't freaking collapsed already.
yeah. Well, that's the point. The money lenders are holding up the state, but the state also, to be fair, it fixates on spending because through that it's able to manipulate the demand for its fiat currency. So I wasn't necessarily wrong, but no, it's also so that Rothschilds and the Morgans, those sort of banking dynasties, can can obtain some more profit off of the loans that they give the state. And it's not that they care. It's not that they give a fuck about the state. It's that one, the state needs them basically in order to sustain itself to an extent. But yeah, it's also because well, obviously they make a shitload of profit off of it.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to another story. This is one of those really crazy stories that you guys won't believe. And I just want to preface it or introduce it by talking about vampires. That might seem random, but think about what a vampire is: a creature of the night, of the darkness, that skulks around and sucks the blood of the living in order to sustain their unnatural vitality. It's pretty much a metaphor for these really old, creepy guys who trick people out of their money in order to sustain their illicit lifestyles.
Yeah, so
But,
basically, the first attempts to record this, we were mentioning how the world was going insane, essentially, especially in regards to the news media, and we have so many fucking stories to go over today. That's why we were mentioning it. But this is something which both of us have brought up for the last couple months here. Is that as the state becomes more and more desperate, the last few years are going to seem more tame in comparison. And I mean, you were mentioning how Prime accounts. I mean, I know that I was the one who showed you this, but there are Prime sources from the Soviet Union, for example, who were essentially saying that reality felt like it was breaking down in the last decade of the Soviet Union.
alright, so let me introduce the story. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, asks old people to stop infusing children's blood to prevent aging.
Yeah,
Literally, vampires, old people. So basically, what's happening is that there's a bunch of firms around the country that pay or that sell blood plasma from donors around 18 to 26 years old, like $8,000. That's how much the bleeders cost, not the donors, not how much the donors are being paid for blood plasma. And they're selling it as some sort of miracle cure that'll prevent or slow down aging. And yeah, like, let me just read this story. The idea of infusing young blood to fight aging has attracted technology entrepreneurs like billionaire Peter Thiel, and was lampooned in a 2017 episode of the HBO show Silicon Valley. Thiel's reported interest was sparked by a company called Ambrosia, which has locations in 5 states across the U.S. and sells 1 liter of blood plasma from donors between ages of 16 and 25, so I was off a little bit, for $8,000, according to its website. Gottlieb and Marks, don't know who those are, said none of the plasma treatments has gone through the rigorous testing required by the agency. Ambrosia says experiments in mice called parabiosis provided the inspiration to deliver treatments with young plasma. The FDA approval typically requires human trials before companies can make a specific health claim about a product. So, I mean, the FDA's official statement is along the lines of that there's no proven medical clinical benefit to infusing old people with young people's blood plasma. I can imagine why. I mean, if there is a benefit, then who is the FDA to say no? If people want to buy it, who is the FDA to say no? But here we have, I mean, this is the kind of crazy world that we're living in where you have literal vampires willing to pay $8,000 for a liter of blood plasma, more specifically. I don't
well, I
know. What do
mean,
you
people
think?
are desperate to try and obviously retain their vitality, which is how you introduced this story. But this is particularly disgusting because, I mean, as we've also been mentioning the last few months, there was recently a breakthrough in genetic engineering using that CRISPR technology that scientists have been able to manipulate the telomeres in human cells essentially so that their metabolism is manipulated. So, in short, people stop aging or they regress in aging. Now, that's so essentially, you don't need to do this. This is just snake oil. But also, as you've noticed recently, there have been some, the media's been fear mongering a lot about genetic engineering, and it's also starting to spread quite a bit on alternative media as well. I wouldn't argue that the people on alt media are shills necessarily, like JF, for example. He made a video going after the gene editing that happened in China, where a gene-edited baby was created. But that's the point. I think that the state's scared of the actual cure, and I think simply if the state would just get the fuck out of medical science, period, you wouldn't see a need for snake oil like this to exist. But yeah, I know this is a bit off topic, but the propaganda surrounding genetic engineering and gene splicing is just fucking ridiculous. Well, creating perfect babies that immune to diseases and have insane metabolisms, that's just like that's a master race mentality. That's what the Nazis wanted. If you support genetic engineering, you're a Nazi. It's fucking ridiculous. It is absolutely insane.
I mean, what do they think about old people becoming literal vampires by injecting blood plasma to keep themselves alive? I'm sorry, should we start referring to it as snake oil? Because that's what this is.
I mean, yeah, it pretty much is. But this also has some, it's the thumbnail of this article is an old painting of an old person taking a bite out of a baby. But to clarify, the blood samples, the plasma came from blood samples of people who were 15 to 29 years old. But that's another disturbing trend that I'm starting to see in state media recently, is the dehumanization of particular groups. Fetuses, that's not a recent trend, but now, I mean, they're literally, babies are just being treated as if they're not even human at this point. Another point, which I'm sort of getting ahead of myself because this point also goes into an article which is coming up, but you're not gonna want to miss it.
And in the meantime, we got a super chat that I missed, probably from a few minutes ago, from one guy, no plan ever, for $5. He says, "Here are some shekels for your shekels throne."
Thank you, Goyam.
That's good work, Goyam. You were making the hive mind very proud. Keep up the good work, and just make sure to never look behind the curtain.
Make sure to never question the Toa and God's chosen people.
Also, don't forget, Israel is America's greatest ally.
Even though they literally do nothing for us.
Greatest ally. Greatest ally. Alright, so what's the next topic?
I am looking at the call right now so that I don't fucking accidentally leak the stream key again. I was just hoping he would cover those.
Okay, well, I can look. Right, we were going to talk about Bernie Sanders making his announcement.
Oh yeah, this is fucking hilarious. Apparently he's running as an independent this time because Democrats have that new rule where people who are registered as independents can't run as Democrats, which makes this even fucking funnier. But yeah, in his announcement speech, he's smiling before he even says it, and that's something that Medicare in the Morning went over. I think aside from just being used as a tool, a political tool, a sort of psyop, sort of in the same vein as Donald Trump, basically to keep the so-called left side of the disenfranchised group satisfied. That's the purpose of people like Bernie Sanders. But also, Bernie Sanders is making fucking bank off of just these bids to run for president.
Oh yeah, like wasn't the average donation to him in his last presidential run when he was running as a Democrat like $23? That was the
In the
average
first
individual donation.
in the first like not in the first 9 hours of announcing his candidacy, he made like $1.7 million so far.
Jeez. Imagine like just imagine just going up on stage, saying a few worthless platitudes, and then suddenly becoming a millionaire by the next day.
He's fucking not even hasn't even been on stage yet. He's just announced that he's gonna be running, and he's basically not even he doesn't even have the chance. He's running as an independent. Um, no, the state wants the Democrat Republican dichotomy. They want a two-party system because it makes it easier for psychological control. Doesn't matter if there are more even then, because all political parties and all politicians are just state employees, so necessarily they all have the same interests. But um, yeah, Bernie Sanders, he is the master shekel gobbler.
I mean, it's interesting he's going to be running as an independent because he'll probably be doing the same interference that Ralph Nader did for the Democrats in 2000, 2004, in that he draws votes away. I mean, for sure, you're going to have some burnouts from 2016 who are probably going to continue to support him no matter what because cult of personality. I can
And
imagine.
that's pretty much all. That's all.
I'm sorry, you roboted there for a minute.
All Bernie Sanders nubs is, uh, uh,
So you might want to
personality.
run command prompt right now.
Oh fucking hell! Hold
Yeah.
on.
If we can get if we can get more proof of stream interference on stream, that would be amazing. But you were roboting pretty bad there.
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're better.
Okay.
So you were saying something about uh, what it means for him to run as an independent because I just see it as yeah, the idea that this is part of a plan to make sure that Trump gets a second term. Yeah, that makes total sense. He's going to draw votes away from the Democrats, and he's probably going to disenfranchise a lot more people. Bernie Sanders is.
Yeah, we should probably make a full video.
You're roboting again.
Um,
You're roboting again.
yeah, my connection's fine. So, this
Oh,
and I still robot.
oh, that is not good for me.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, the fucking stream should be completely fine, and I'm not seeing any IPs logged into my computer, so it's not a DDoS. I think this has to be. First of all, we have to be getting throttled because we're both. Your connection is fine. I can hear you just fine, and the stream looks like it's fine.
Everyone on stream says that they can hear you fine.
Yeah, so this is fucking kind of this is some bullshit right here.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's YouTube throttling my connection or what, but
I think it's honestly I
it
think it's
could
probably
it
that.
could just be you.
Not ruling that out, but you can hear me just fine. You would be
That
hearing
that's
roboting
the
from
thing.
me.
If it was connection, I think you'd be roboting as well.
Yeah.
So that's why my mind, the first thing I go to is I'm being throttled because our connection's fine, stream's fine, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm watching the stream right now. So, one thing I'm absolutely certain for what's going to happen come 2019 or at least later 2019 when the primary really starts to pick up is that there is going to be a fountain of content for us to make. Stupid speeches to reply to, dumb points. People are going to be posting out manifestos, and it's going to be absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking great.
And
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought from earlier again. That's why I'm probably not gonna continue on to that unless it comes to mind again. But yeah, this isn't news. Bernie Sanders, if you actually go to Open Secrets, his campaign for 2016 was largely funded by Alphabet Inc., so Google, Amazon, the U.S. Air Force. He basically an amalgamation of governments and corporatists, and he has this propaganda like his campaign is it's funded just by the people. I think that's his advertising strategy for getting Goyim to give him some shekels. But no, he was a corporate candidate. He was a government candidate, just like everybody else, and just like exactly what I was explaining earlier, all parties, all politicians are exactly the same because they all have the exact same fucking incentives.
goes that's I think it should probably go without saying at this point, but there are a lot of people who are actually surprised when politicians don't keep their campaign promises. I remember reading an article, it's like I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, where Ann Coulter is just on a tear against Donald Trump because he didn't keep his campaign promises. Well, first off, Ann Coulter is an atrocious judge of character just in general, but
And
what did you expect?
that's what I was about to get into. We need to make videos, basically exposing how the media is operated by the state and how most of these I think we've done a pretty good job of this, but how most of these narratives designed to demonize Trump are actually playing towards the state's interests.
I mean,
They're,
I think that kind of goes without saying because if you victimize Trump, the position, the opposing position has to be come and rally around Trump. Like,
exactly. It's designed essentially as propaganda in order to make Trump seem as if he appeals to disenfranchised people as an attempt to get them back into the political system, back into voting, because that's the point right now. People aren't voting, and the state's fucking terrified because people aren't voting as a result of becoming disenfranchised.
I think this is what's going to make 2019 or later 2019 and 2020 very interesting for us as voluntarists because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be very disenfranchised, very frustrated, and you're going to have, I don't know, people voting for Donald Trump because they hate Joe Biden, and people voting for Joe Biden because they hate Donald Trump. We'll have a good chance to like peel that away. Just like instead of trying to just vote for someone because you don't like the other guy, what if we just didn't have to have this happen ever again? What if
Yeah,
our
you
entire society was not governed by the results of a popularity contest every 4 years?
and closer to the actual election, I'm definitely going to make a video sometime, at least in the next few months or in 2020, basically appealing to people. Like, let's be honest, you aren't even voting for whoever you're voting for because you like them or because you think that they appeal to your interests. You're voting for them because you hate the other guy. And isn't the point like the supposed what you're fed about the system is that voting is supposed to achieve political change? You're not doing this to achieve political change. You're doing this out of spite, and you know that it can't achieve political change.
And obviously, the position that they have is completely understandable. They feel threatened. They're not wrong for feeling threatened because, let's be honest, the candidate that they think is threatening them actually is threatening them. They're going to steal their money. They're going to bomb people overseas. They're going to engage in things and use the money that they took from you to commit acts that you most likely think are murder. So,
Which
of
was
course.
that was the problem in 2016, and that's sort of what the state's left at. That's the reason why so many people are becoming disenfranchised, is because the 2016 election, like all elections, was just a massive propaganda campaign. But this one was different from the rest because they had because both candidates were hated by everybody, and the only reason anybody participated is because both candidates were telling people that if the other one got elected, the world was going to blow up. And that's literally what they were saying. And that's not completely different from elections of the past, but this was different in the sense that there was just absolutely nothing for anyone. Think of what is one thing you could say about how Hillary Clinton was advertising herself, or how Donald Trump was advertising himself. I mean, at most, maybe you can say he was appealing to some of the mainstream nationalists with the border wall proposal, and okay, fine, but outside of that, there was nothing. He was just basically giving both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were giving one particular faction just a bunch of drugs, basically, like the political just dopamine hits. We're gonna give you chicken tendies, and you're gonna hang out with all your best friends if you join my club.
That's pretty much what a political party is.
So
And
yeah, it's
we're going to see more of that come 2020. And I think that's one of the best parts about removing ourselves from the political process come around 2016, because now we can watch a general election unfold and see what happens without being caught up in the emotional baggage that comes with being part of Team Biden or Team Trump.
Do you think it's going to be Biden? Because at this point, I don't. Honestly, it could be just about anybody.
It could be, but I'm pretty sure it'll be Biden. I'm not going to say 100% definitively, but I'm just using him as a default. I know that, what's his name? Bill de Blasio, Democrat mayor of New York City, has refused to endorse Bernie Sanders because he's still floating the idea. I don't know if they'll try to put him out. I mean, it'd be hilarious if they did, because he's ran New York City into the absolute ground. But yeah.
I mean, also there's fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna run de Blasio. I think that yeah, he's basically exactly what you said. Fucking hell, I lost that.
It's alright, happens to the best
I
of us.
lost it. I lost it.
Alright, nobody move. We're trying to find SO's train of thought. If you see it, drop a tip in the super chats letting us know where it is. Alright,
Yeah,
so
the one day that I have long, in-depth trains of thought live on stream, which I gotta be completely honest, most of the time I feel like I'm about to go to sleep. The one fucking day that happens, I can't keep my train of thought.
that's alright, happens to the best of us. So, want to go into the the story?
No, we got some others. There's also a story, one that I wanted to cover, of an 11-year-old boy who was trying to sell hot chocolate and got ratted out to the police by his neighbors, and the police actually came to his house and tried to stop him.
Good God, the freaking cockroaches. I know it's not even just like the cockroaches' fault. I mean, like, did the police do anything? Like, was the kid threatened?
Yeah, he was threatened. I don't know necessarily if he was sent to jail. The article doesn't specify, but yeah, that's something that's really important to take into consideration, which is exactly why I was mentioning it. That's because that's another thing which the state is going to be doing within the next few months is counter economics. Basically, we're already starting to see efforts to propagandize the population regarding private encrypted ledgers and any means by which people can trade around the state that the state can't actually monitor their transactions, and consequently they can't tax these transactions, because that's how people are starting to affect political change. I don't think this is now I'm not saying that there's a giant movement of agorists worldwide, but I think that out of economic necessity, sort of just because people are trying to make a better life for themselves, people are starting to trade in counter economic transactions. But this is something that we need to be wary of. We can't just pretend that the state will be abolished if you sell Mexican jelly out of your garage. No, the state is going to launch propaganda campaigns like this to try and get people to rat on one another. And this is something which I've foreseen from the very moment that I actually became an agorist. That the moment an actual counter-economic revolution was brewing, this was the sort of shit that was happening. This was the sort of shit that was going to happen, and sure enough, here we are.
So basically, what happens is that I'm pretty sure you've all read these stories of what it was like in totalitarian countries, where, like during the Reign of Terror in revolutionary France, during the Nazi regime in Germany, and during the Soviet Union, you really couldn't trust anyone because literally anyone could either be could be Stasi, could be a secret police agent. You have in 1984, anyone, even shop owners could be secret police agents. People would rat each other out for one reason or another, even for completely petty reasons. And this see something, say something is exactly a form of that. It's a way to get the domestic population to spy on each other so that the police doesn't have to do their job. And people have been propagandized to do this for years. You go into public transit, you go to an airport, and you'll see posters all over the place that say, if you see a suspicious package or if you see someone doing something suspicious, you need to say something to authorities right now. Even though, let's be honest, this is mostly just to mostly condition people into saying that, like, yeah, in order to keep my community safe, I need to
And
call
yeah,
the
it's about to
police.
start getting more insane. I'm calling it right now. Once like they really start getting scared of private ledgers, they're gonna start saying things like cryptocurrency is promoted by terrorists. Oh wait, they're already doing that. Never mind.
I'm pretty sure. I think what's going to happen next, and you'll probably be able to predict, like, look for this now, is that if you use cryptocurrency, you're a white supremacist. That seems to be the thing. But yeah, I can completely imagine that because they can't monitor cryptocurrency. What they'll do is they'll have a if you see something, say something. Oh crap.
Yeah, I still can't hear you.
Yeah, you think that they're throttling his connection now? Because this isn't this is clearly a technical issue, like I pointed out. I'm looking on OBS right now, and there's absolutely nothing coming from his end. Oh, well, sure enough, I guess he left the call. I have no fucking idea if we're still streaming. Kind of don't want to click away, but well, we should be. It says on OBS that we're still streaming. Um, well, I guess we can get on to the last story. There is a local newspaper in Alabama called the Democratic Post, I think. I'm not looking at the fucking article right now, of course. But yeah, there's a local newspaper basically targeted towards readers who support the Democratic Party, which called for the reinstitution of the not the reinstitution, but for the Ku Klux Klan to quote ride again. That was the title of the article. The Klan needs to ride again. And yeah, this was some boomer tier senile fucking ramblings in the article. Basically, the argument being presented boils down to, we treat rich people just like black people, so we need to start lynching. We need to start lynching people. And I think it goes without saying that the so-called rich people, however they choose to define that, have been dehumanized by politicians for the longest time. You know, there are some people who just happen to have a lot of money, like doctors who've gone to med school, and they're not necessarily politically connected with the state. They're essentially just hardworking people who found a profession which pays very well. But yeah, what I was gonna say is that yeah, this is a bad time to be losing my train of thought. But yeah, this is essentially what that sort of dehumanization can lead to, and it's something which we've been saying for the longest time, which is that rich people are dehumanized by the political media and used by a scapegoat by the state to sort of get around the fact that the state is ultimately responsible for all of our economic problems and all of our political problems as well. That's really all that I had to say about it. Oh, and apparently he was called up by a state representative about it who was in the Democratic Party. The person who runs this newspaper, and the person who runs the newspaper and wrote the editorial. And he apparently told this politician that he would explicitly support lynching rich people. So, yeah, let's kill all the rich people. Alright, well, not really much more to be said at this point, especially with Filthy gone, and that's the main story we were getting into. Been streaming for about an hour. So, thank you all for watching. I hope that I carried this stream well for the last 10 minutes. I know that at least I think that I didn't, but I've lacked confidence in my performance before, and you guys have told me that I did fine. So who the fuck knows? I'll go ahead and we'll see you all next time. I'm Esso, and well, that was Filthy, but he got showed by YouTube, I think. See ya.